And speaking of changing, obviously things in our world have changed by far.
Yes.
The pandemic has made things very different for us over here in ID land, and for us who are already in the field, I think we've all adapted. We figured out what to do and where to go next. But for those who are they're just been introduced to instructional design, there's many teachers out there that just realize this is a field, or they've heard about it but they never really thought about it, and now people are seriously considering, hey, maybe I should become an instructional designer. And that is certainly where the confusion goes into everything, is that as just normal people who have gone back to school, I think that's the first idea that people have is, oh, I should go back to school and get bachelor's, master's, PhD, whatever it is. But then there's always these other different options of you have different forms of certificates, or you could potentially train yourself for there's, so many different things out there nowadays. So before you do anything else, how do you actually know if it's right for you to go back to school?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, it always fascinated me how teachers didn't know about instructional design and how college professors didn't know about instructional design. But to me, I think one of the things that you want to think about is kind of look at where you are in your now. Obviously, I'm going to have a bias toward going back and getting your degree, but take a look at where you are in your career and where do you want to go? What do you want to do with it? So, if you're a teacher and you're just tired of teaching and you kind of want to do some development of instruction, but it's just something that you're doing because it's not your avocation, it's just your vocation, then I think there are a lot of methodologies to get up to speed, to understand what to do. Teachers make great instructional designers. But if you're thinking about really changing careers or taking a deep dive or looking extensively at the field, then I think a degree makes sense if you really are interested in immersing yourself in the concepts and ideas. I think if you do it for a little bit of a, like, certainly it makes sense if you're like, hey, I got a few years to retirement, or I think this might be of interest. Then take some non-degreed approaches. If you're like, I really want to explore this and understand it and take a deep dive, then I think degrees work really well, master's degrees and then PhDs. PhDs are funny. You can price yourself out of a market if you go for a PhD. If you want to teach, you should definitely get a PhD. But sometimes you're overqualified if you have a PhD. So be careful about why you want to get that. I say to people, if you want to consult, PhD is perfect because it definitely adds a sense of um, consult on the strategic level. Definitely adds a sense of credibility and things like that. If you want to be a freelancer and you want to get into storyline or whatever, there's so many ways you can learn those tools, and many graduate programs don't even have those tools. So if you approach it from the tool perspective, many graduate programs are not the way to go. If you want, and the other problem I've heard about instructional technology programs is that the designers that come out are too rigid. Like they won't adapt to the model. And I always say, my students, take the A in ADDIE and the E in ADDIE and just chop them off, and you have die. And so most companies just want to die their instruction, right? So that's the way you approach it. So that you need to think about that. Now, on the other hand, you can make your whole living just doing learning analysis, or you can make a whole living just doing evaluation. So it depends on like kind of where you want to approach it from. But I think there are valid reasons to do both. Um, and I mostly counsel people. They say, hey, I'm thinking about getting a PhD or I'm thinking about a master's degree. I'm like, go for it, do it, because you never regret doing it. You always regret not doing it.
Mm.
In my experience.
Hmm.
So just go ahead and go for it and see what you can do and what kind of examples. But, going back to school full time or even part time is a commitment. And online, it's a commitment. And what kind of commitment do you want to make? And then how do you want to leverage your return on investment? Do you want it right away? Then getting the skills right away, being an instructional designer right away, taking workshops right away is very effective. If you're kind of in the long haul, then getting the degree and investing that way can be pretty lucrative as well.